Hello and welcome back to the PR Fit podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, thank you so much for listening to the show. I appreciate it. The only thing I ask of you is if you enjoyed this episode or any episodes in the past, please send it to somebody that you think would benefit from the information. I have no idea who's listening to these. I can see the play count, but I just really appreciate that if you would share it with somebody and just keep spreading the good news. All right. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in today. You already know what the podcast is about, judging by the title. It is something that I think people lie on, two different sides of the spectrum when it comes to cardio. And I think cardio is just a topic in fitness that is very misunderstood. And what I mean by that is, again, people lie on one of two sides of the spectrum. One side of the spectrum, people think it's the holy grail and they just, put way too much stock, way too much effort in cardio. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I think people think that it's useless and that it, is just doesn't do anything beneficial for you. When in reality, it's somewhere in the middle. Okay. And the big thing I want to talk about in today's episode is using cardio correctly, because most people, like 90% of the people I talk to, they're using cardio incorrectly. All right. And we're all, what we're all about here. We're all about working smarter and not harder. Okay. And I painted this picture before in previous podcasts, but the picture of, hey, I'm 20 pounds overweight and I'm trying to lose weight, and I'm doing a lot of biking and I'm doing a lot of running and I'm doing a lot of HIIT classes and I'm not losing weight, that is the worst place to be in. Okay. And there is a reason why you're not losing weight. And I want to touch on a couple of those factors. But one of the reasons within that is that cardio is not the end all be all. Okay. And you're working harder and not smarter. So, I want to touch on a couple of very important points. And, my goal of this episode is to help you kind of understand how you need to correctly use cardio moving forward to actually get the results that you want to see. Okay. And the first thing I want to clarify is, from the very beginning, is, all the content and the people I work with, my clients, we are not performance-based athletes. Okay. And that's what we need to understand from the get-go here. If you are training for a marathon, if you are training to run the fastest 10K you can possibly run, what I'm about to go over is out of context to you. Okay, if you're training for a marathon, obviously you need to run. Obviously, cardio in the form of running is going to be beneficial because you are trying to perform your fastest marathon time ever. And I come from a distance runner background. I ran cross country and track at Grand Valley. I'm not disputing that. Okay. What I'm going to be touching on in this episode is for people that do not have performance-based goals, but people who are either trying to lose weight or they're trying to look leaner and more toned in the mirror. Okay. Because the way you need to use cardio and the way you need to train your body in general is much different than how you need to train and use cardio if you're trying to run a fast marathon. Okay. That's what I want you to understand, from the get-go here. Okay. So, first, let's go over the best forms of cardio. And I'm going to give you two answers here, basically answer 1A and 1B. The first one is going to be what I think is going to be most helpful for you, like the most helpful cardio answer for you. And then 1B is going to be more the scientific-based reason. But, just hear me out on both of these. So, what are the best forms of cardio for weight loss, for fat loss? All right. My first answer to that is going to be whatever form of cardio that you enjoy doing. Okay. There in 1B, I'll get to what's kind of more beneficial, what's less beneficial, but the most beneficial form is this one that you're going to be consistent with and that you're going to do on a weekly basis. And if you like to run, then you should run. Okay. If you like to bike, you should bike. If you like to play basketball, you should play basketball. Okay. Whatever, regardless of how beneficial it is or not for fat loss, if you like, whatever's getting you to move your body, you should continue to do that. Okay. And I don't want you to take from this to be like, oh, because I'm going to talk about running a whole bunch here in a second. But what I don't want you to take from this is like, oh, Ricky says running's useless or it's bad for you or whatever. I need to stop running. If you like running, you need to keep running. Okay. Don't let me, hear me out on my answer to 1B, but, understand like if you enjoy running, if you enjoy doing, going on long bike rides or whatever, like by all means, keep rolling. It is beneficial for you. You are burning calories. It is going to help if you get the other things lined up. Now, my answer 1B to the question of like what's the most beneficial forms of cardio, usually going to fall in the two boats here. And this is, again, this isn't the end all be all, but the two most beneficial forms are going to usually be either high intensity interval training type cardio or low intensity steady state cardio. Okay. And let me give you a couple examples of both of those. So the first one, high intensity interval training. This is when we are going hard for a very short period of time and then taking like 2 to 3 times the amount of time for rest. So example of that would be if you sprinted hard on the treadmill for 10 seconds and then you took 30 seconds off, which is 3 times the amount of time you were working, 30 seconds off to recharge. What this does from, a scientific standpoint is it ramps your heart rate up hard. You are pushing yourself to near max effort for 10 seconds, and then we take 30 seconds to bring the heart rate back down the best we can, and then we ramp it up again, and then we bring it back down, okay? Very demanding on your body. You're going to burn a whole bunch of calories doing it that way, okay? Really, really hard, and then time off. Really, really hard, and then time off. And some of the best form of interval training is done in like a couple different sports. If you have an Apple Watch or a Whoop or anything and you can track your heart rate, if you look, I have a client that plays hockey. If you looked at his heart rate over that hour where he played hockey, it would look like we were doing a high intensity interval workout on a treadmill, like to a T. It was like, I was like, this is unbelievable. I took a picture of it or a screenshot of it. It was like ramp up, ramp up, ramp up, and then the whistle blew, and then there was like 30 seconds off before the puck dropped again, and then it was heart rate's down, heart rate's down, heart rate's down, and then we're back in play, and it's back up, and then it down and down and down. And it's a similar deal to basketball, any start and stop sports. So like basketball, volleyball, tennis, anything where we're going hard for a short period of time and then resting, and then hard for a short period of time and then resting. That's some of the best high intensity interval training you can do. And if you're someone that likes to play basketball, likes to play hockey, likes to play tennis, then this is like, that's right up your alley. And, for me, I haven't done a whole lot of like hard, like interval sprint work on the treadmill in a long time. But like I've been playing a lot of tennis lately. I've been playing a lot of pickleball lately. But I more so favor the low intensity because it's easy to do. And that's what I'm going to touch on next. So those are some examples of high intensity. Let's go over some examples of low intensity. I think everyone, in my opinion's bread and butter should be walking. Okay, low intensity, steady state exercise is just what it sounds like. So, low intensity, our heart rate's not nearly as high as it is when we're like sprinting on the treadmill for 10 seconds on, 30 seconds off. But we're able to do it for longer periods of time because of that. Walking is something that 99% of people can do. And if you don't do anything else, like I'm so confident in this, if you just added like a 30-minute walk in every single day, like, at night or whatever, when you get out of work, that by itself, if you have a weight loss goal, should help you a ton. And obviously there's other factors that are going to go into that, but just walking and getting out and moving is so beneficial to ramping up your calorie burn for the day. And this is really what I recommend to most people for the two main reasons. Is one, it's very easy to do, and two, it's very effective for fat loss, okay? And I know that, some of you might be listening to this and you're like, oh my God, that's outrageous. Like Ricky has no idea what he's talking about. Trust me, 10 years ago, I would have literally laughed at this. Like I would have someone would be like, oh yeah, you should just do more walking if you're trying to get leaner. I'd be like, yeah, walking like literally doesn't do anything for you. Walking is so beneficial for fat loss. It's just like, in my brain now, I'm just like, why would you not do anything else but walking? Like, it's so easy to do, and it's so beneficial to helping you lose body fat and look leaner in the mirror. So, again, the two forms, high intensity interval training and then low intensity steady state, which is something like walking or like a real light bike ride or the elliptical. And don't get caught up too much in these fat burning zones. I know, like, that's been a big thing in the past. What I recommend to most people, or what I recommend to my clients, is like, okay, let's get on the treadmill. Let's bring the incline up to like at least 5%, depending on what you can do, between 5 and 10% incline. And then let's walk and get our heart rate anywhere from like 110 to 130 beats per minute. And let's just hold that for 25 to 30 minutes. Or really, if you're someone that's, needs to get even more calorie burn in, then, maybe around 40 minutes. But the moral of the story is like, that's a very, it's not a slog. It's not like I'm barely moving, but it's also not a sprint. Okay. Obviously we're walking for a reason. Okay. If you're getting on a treadmill and you're walking and you're getting your heart rate up into like 150, 160, that's way, that's you're working harder and not smarter. Okay. We don't need to be at 160 walking. I don't even know if that's possible. You probably have to, run to get to yourself to 160, but let's compare that to, okay, so I just went over the high intensity. Okay, let's think of that. That's one side of the spectrum. And then I went over low intensity steady state. That's the other side of the spectrum. Okay, scientifically wise, those are the two best ways to operate if our goal is to lose body fat. Okay, now there's that middle part of the spectrum, which is we're not at high intensity steady state, we're not at low intensity. We're not at high intensity interval training. We're not at low intensity steady state. We're somewhere in the middle. And that's going to be like running. That's going to be like, biking hard for an hour. Running and long biking are two best examples. Biking's not bad. I don't want to group biking in. Running is where we run into some problems. No pun intended. And I want you to really hear me out on this and understand what I'm saying from a running standpoint. If you are someone that likes to run, then again, like I mentioned, you should continue to run. If you're someone that's running for the sole purpose because you think it's going to help you, burn body fat quicker, and you don't like running, you 100% should not be running. Or you should be sprinting hard for 10 seconds and then walking for 30. Or you should be walking, okay? But the danger we run into, not that running's super dangerous, but the problems we run into with running is really like we just get too many like flare-ups and injury standpoints, and it's really just unnecessary. And let's just think about it. If you could just walk at a steady state for 25 to 30 minutes and get the results you want, or you could run and like feel miserable and your hips hurt and your knees hurt and your ankles hurt and your feet hurt or whatever flares up on you, why wouldn't you just walk? Okay, and that's what I want to get across to like most people is, if we're running for the sake of like, oh, we just think that we're going to get in better shape from running, it's not true. Okay. You're better off short sprinting, or you're better off just walking at walking at a low intensity steady state. Okay. And I know this is kind of like, people get this confused a whole bunch. And again, if you like to run, I'm not saying you should stop running. You should keep running. Okay. If that's what you like to do. But if you're running just for the sake that you think you're going to burn more body fat, it's not true. Okay, you're working harder and not smarter. And the main problem that we run into with running, like I just mentioned, is we start having these flare-ups with injuries. And what's the number one thing that sets us back in the gym and just on our fitness goal or our fitness journey in general is injuries. Okay, it's just again, I'm not going to harp on this too much, but it's just working harder and not smarter unless you enjoy doing it. Okay, that's what I'm going to say on it. So what next thing I want to touch on is what I do for cardio. Okay, for those of you that do not know, obviously, I come from a distance runner background, like I mentioned earlier. I ran cross country and track, distance runner at Grand Valley for 5 years. All right, so I come from this distance runner background. Okay, a lot of people ask me, Ricky, how much are you running now? I have not ran since COVID summer, which is what, 2020? I have not ran since 2020. It's been 3 years. And it blows some people's mind. And people also get they see the results I've gotten since 2020 and they equate it to running. They're like, oh, you're really lean because you like run so much. Dude, I haven't ran since 2020. Okay. And this is the misconception I really want to clear up. Okay. And people ask, Ricky, why don't you run anymore? two main answers on why I don't run anymore is number one, I've kind of lost the main reason why I don't run anymore is it's just not advantageous to my goal. Okay, I'm trying to gain muscle mass. I'm trying to have as little body fat as possible. Um, I'm trying to look stronger, be leaner in the mirror, and like for the reasons I just touched on, it's smarter for me to do either high intensity interval training type exercises or to walk. Okay. It is not any more beneficial for me to run. So I do not run anymore. Okay. That's answer one. Answer two is I just don't like the motivation for me to run is just not there anymore. Like, obviously, running was my life in college. It was all about, hey, I want to be All American in track. I want to be All American in cross country. And I had different goals. I had performance based goals. I was trying to run the fastest mile I could possibly run. Obviously, if you want to run, a 4 minute mile, it's going to involve running. Okay. And that's what my goal was at the time. Getting out of college, getting in the real world, I'm like, hey, I just want to look strong. I want to be lean. When you learn what it takes to look strong and to be lean, you realize that running's not in that equation. Okay. So that's really the main reason why I don't run anymore. So what I do for cardio is I'm either, playing some type of sport like tennis, or recently we've been playing a lot of pickleball. As funny as it sounds, but it is good. Again, start and stop sports are very beneficial to fat loss. I'm either doing one of those two things as of late, or I'm walking. Most of my cardio comes from walking. Okay, and I've been doing a whole bunch. This summer is a great example. I'm continuing to get leaner and leaner and leaner. I obviously have my calories and macros dialed in, but I need to ramp up my cardio a little bit more because I don't want to go any lower on calories. So I have to bump up my cardio. So what do? I just walk more. Okay. And that's what's allowing me to get leaner and leaner and leaner. And I've gotten to a good rhythm with it over the past 3 months, where it's basically like, hey, 3 days a week I was doing 30 minutes of cardio. And then, okay, I added an extra day in. And then now I'm up to like, okay, I'm doing, 4 days a week around 40 minutes. And now I've got to the point where like, hey, I got a little bit more to go as far as like how much leaner I want to get. Taylor and I are probably going to get a treadmill for our house because I want to continue to walk at that pace, and I absolutely hate walking in the winter. So that's like kind of the next thing is like, okay, my cardio, more so my cardio in the winter is going to be walking on the treadmill. Okay. But that's what I do. So that's a big misconception I want to touch on because I've heard it a lot. Okay. I hear a lot, Ricky, I want to look like you. Like, dude, how much are you running? And I just like try to get through people's head, dude, I'm not running at all. Okay. And it's not, people had this, you equate this like, oh, if you're super, super lean, you must be doing a whole lot of cardio. Um, Sometimes that's true, but, the other thing to be lean is you need to have high muscle mass. And in order to have high muscle mass, you have to lift, and train your body correctly. Okay. So that is what I do. Let me quickly touch on the common mistakes. The common mistakes when people are trying to lose weight um, or get leaner is they think that the first thing they need to do is ramp up their cardio. Now, I just talked to you about, oh, I've been ramping up my cardio. Let me give you the full context. Number one, before you ramp up your cardio, or really before you add any cardio in, I don't add any cardio in to my clients' programs until we get these first two things done. Number one is you need to be lifting consistently. Okay, minimum of 3 days per week. Because like what I just mentioned, you need to have muscle mass and you need to gain muscle mass because that is the more efficient and quicker way to get lean. Okay, and people don't understand that. When we're just doing cardio and we're not lifting, we are burning body fat, but we are not gaining any muscle mass. And when we're not gaining any muscle mass, we run into the problem of just not looking how we want in the mirror. Okay, we might lose a little bit of weight, but in the mirror, visibly, we might not look like we've lost any weight at all because we're still pretty soft. Okay, and that's not what any of us are going for. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to get on a consistent weight training routine. The second thing, which is equally as important and really more important, is you need to start eating correctly for your goals. Okay, until you're eating the correct calories and macros, and until you're lifting weights consistently, you're not going to be seeing the results you want to see in the mirror. And you can throw a bunch of cardio at that, but if you're not eating correctly and you're not lifting, I'm telling you right now, you're not going to look any different. Okay? And again, there's nothing worse than doing a shit ton of cardio and then not visibly not changing how you look in the mirror at all. Okay, that's literally the worst place to be. And I don't want to, make fun of anybody or anything, but this is what I see like all the time is like is people just like running and again, are you running because you're training for a marathon? That's one thing. If we're running just to lose weight, dude, the worst thing ever is to be 20 pounds overweight and we're running 50 miles a week and we're still 20 pounds overweight. Like, you don't want to be there. Okay. It's a very inefficient way to operate, and it's very hard on your body. Okay. You need to start lifting weights 3 days per week, and you need to start, tracking your nutrition. And then once you do those two things, now we can use cardio to force more of a calorie burn to get to our goal quicker. And that's what I want to transition into talking about next, because I just had this conversation with one of my clients. And I think a lot of people will resonate with this. So I have an online client right now. He's been in the program for about 2 months. Okay. Before he got into the program, all he was doing was cardio. Okay. He has a Peloton at home and he was hammering out the Peloton. And I believe that's really the only cardio he was doing. So he got a Peloton and he was just cranking the Peloton. Okay. And for the reasons I just mentioned, his nutrition, he had no nutrition program. He had no weight training. So he was getting no results. Okay. And we're 2 months into the program and he's really dialed in his nutrition. He's been following his strength training program, and he's down about 12 pounds right now. So I'm starting to add cardio into more cardio in his training and to his programs on a weekly basis. And during our last, when we talked last the other day, he was like, I just don't want to get on the Peloton. I just don't want to do any cardio. I just want to lift. And I said, we're lifting 5 days a week. Like, why, let me ask you, why do you want to do 6 days? He's like, I just had this mental thing, like cardio just like doesn't work. And this is something that people fall into. Okay. And the thing I had to get through his mind is like, listen, you were using cardio incorrectly in the past. Okay. You were doing a whole lot of Peloton rides, but your diet was way out of whack and you weren't lifting. That's why we weren't seeing results. Okay. Now that you have your diet in check, and now that we're lifting 5 days a week, when we add that cardio in, it is now beneficial to us getting to our goal. Okay. Now it is going to help us lose weight faster. Okay. So don't have this negative viewpoint of cardio, because now when you're using cardio correctly, it is going to work for your fat loss goal. Okay. And he's like, I know, I gotta tell myself. And now that was about 2 weeks ago. And now, I think he has a much better perception when we have our cardio days of like, okay, I'm doing cardio today, but it is going to get me closer to my goal. In the past, it wasn't, because I was doing the lifting incorrectly. I was doing the nutrition incorrectly. But now that I got those two things dialed in, now I can feel confident that when I do cardio, it is helping me get closer to my fat loss goal. It is helping me look leaner in the mirror. Okay. And I wanted to share that story because I think a lot of people feel that way. And that's one side of the spectrum where people think, oh, cardio doesn't do anything. Cardio does, and is a very helpful tool when you're using it correctly. Okay. And that's just a great example of like, hey, we've had this negativity around it in the past because it didn't work in the past, because we're doing, the lifting and the nutrition wrong. Now we're doing everything correctly. And that's what I refer to as just getting everything dialed in. And those are the 3 essentials that you yourself need to get dialed in if you want to see big results in the mirror. Okay, that was basically what I wanted to go over from, a cardio standpoint. So just to wrap up this episode, the one thing is like, the first thing I went over is like, okay, best form of cardio is going to be either, whatever you like to do in terms of cardio, or, again, in my opinion, walking is the best form because of its ability to be beneficial in burning body fat and ramping up your calorie burn, and then also very low impact, and you're able to do it consistently. So that's why I think it's the best form. And then again, if you're someone, like I just mentioned, my client who's like kind of got this negativity around it, it's like, you need to understand what's more important here. Okay. The main focus cannot be on cardio if our goal is to lose body fat and to gain muscle mass. Our main focus needs to be getting our nutrition in check and getting and following a structured weight training routine. Those two things are going to dramatically change how you look in the mirror and get you on track to losing weight and looking how you want. And not until you get those two things dialed in should you start spending any time doing cardio. Okay? Because if you are, then you're just working harder and not smarter. And again, that's the worst place to be. Okay? If you need help with any of that I went over, that is exactly what I do with my clients is, okay, let's get, you need to follow structured strength training routine. Here's your calories, here's your macros. We got to get those dialed in. Then we can use cardio correctly and force, get us to our goal quicker. So if you have any questions with that, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is rickyperez.fit. But shoot me a message. Let me know, let's go over what you're struggling with and all that. And I can kind of point you in the correct direction. But yeah, that's like the main thing that's the main thing I see is like people are just using cardio incorrectly. I don't want you to be one of those people. We're all about working smarter and not harder. We want to actually get to our results. We want to know that the work that we're putting on in the gym, in regardless if it's in weightlifting or in cardio, that it's actually getting us closer to our goal because we don't want to be spinning our tires. That is the worst place to be. All right, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it with somebody. I will see you in the next episode. Peace out.